Last year it was 12 young pupils and now 14 tragically killed on their way to school. Well, last week South Africa woke up to the horror news of yet another scholar transport tragedy that claimed the lives of young pupils. 12 of them killed on the scene and 2 more succumbing later to their injuries. Of course, this has again thrust the issue of scholar transport back into the spotlight, with questions whether enough is being done to address the issue of scholar transport. 14 families are in mourning, and of course, the driver has been arrested. The preliminary investigations show that this was a case of reckless and negligent driving, as the 22-year-old was seen overtaking 3 other vehicles before slamming into a truck. And of course, the questions remain: what will happen now? Is enough being done to address the issue of scholar transport? Well, the 22-year-old driver has since appeared in court. He's facing multiple counts of murder, as well as 3 counts of attempted murder, 1 count of driving without a professional driving permit, 1 count of operating an unlicensed vehicle, 1 count of reckless and negligent driving, and 1 count of driving an unlicensed vehicle. So this was somebody who clearly did not have the papers or was legally allowed to operate at the time when this accident happened. So today we're asking, how did the school run become one of the most dangerous daily rituals in this country, and who is supposed to stop it? Well, we'll be in discussion with some of the families that have been affected in this tragedy. One of those families is the Sifatsa family that lost 2 of their loved ones. An uncle, Pihelo Motawong, was 19 years old, as well as his nephew, 7-year-old Lesego Sifatsa, was also on his way to school. Both of them killed in the same accident. And it's been a tough week for the families. Of course, the whole country mourned. Not only were the families affected by this, but the whole country. And it again raises questions as to what's going to happen now. Well, we're going to be speaking to one of the families that has been hard hit by this accident. A family that lost 2 of their children, an uncle and a nephew. Pihelo Motawong was 19 years old from El Shaddai Christian Community School, as well as Lesego Sifatsa, who was 7 years old, a grade 2 pupils at Oakwood Primary School. I'm joined now by Chris Masenya, who is the father of Lesego Sifatsa. Chris, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. I know that it's still quite difficult for the family. It's been a difficult week for you as a family, but how are you coping with what happened at this point?
Greetings once again, Manqoba, to yourself, the technical team, as well as your listeners. It's been a very, very difficult week for all of us, families affected. I think this week is probably going to be the hardest, because that's when the actual funeral actually is. It's been very, very hard. As we speak, Lesego's grandmother, which is Pelo's mother, is not doing well at all. I think she's also been rushed to the hospital this morning. She's not doing well at all. So it's been a very, very difficult week, just to answer your question.
Just tell me, Chris, of the moment when you heard about this crash and the moments that followed after that. We spoke with you briefly, and you told me just of how devastating it was for you as a father going to the scene. And of course, we saw the pandemonium that happened there when the parents wanted to see their children. Just tell me about that moment when you heard about this crash and how it's been since then.
At first, I'll be honest, I thought it was something minor. When I got the call, I was actually still sleeping. And I got the call from the school's mother. The school's mother says to me, apparently there's a crash. Banaba Bakrile accident. Like, okay, let me get dressed and then let's go there. Long story short, we gather ourselves, we just start driving there. The drive took about 45 minutes to an hour for us to get there. And when we got there, the scene was locked out. They refused for us to go in because they said there was still some technical things that they were supposed to do. There were still pictures they were taking. But I think also they still wanted to grind open the kumbi or the taxi that had been in the accident. I think as parents, we stood there for about 30 minutes to an hour, if not 2 hours, while we wait in agony. So after a while, they allowed us in. Actually, they didn't allow us in. We forcefully went in. Because at some point, they wanted to allow the forensic guys to go in and start taking the bodies before we could go and identify them. Because at some point, I remember one of the guys said to us, you guys just need to go to the forensic department and then go and identify there. Hey, the parents got very angry and we just stormed in. And I tell you, it was such a devastating scene. It was such a devastating scene. When I got there, the first person we saw was Piello, my son's uncle. He was covered in foil, but because he's tall and we know his stature, we quickly identified the body. And immediately when I raised my head, I saw my son face down to the gravel. I don't think I can unsee that vision out of my head for a long time. When I saw my son laying there lifeless, laying there like a bag of potatoes, I can't get over it. I can't get over it no more.
You know, Chris, it also hit hard to some of us that were covering the story. Of course, the emotions were there as well. Not only did we feel the pain of the families, but I mean, I'm talking here from a personal experience myself, where I lost a brother to a scholar transport vehicle. And that was in 2005. But I found myself as well, you know, absorbing those feelings, going through the pain that you as families went through. Seeing your children there on the scene, lying down. But I want to ask you this, Chris. Do you think that this could have been avoided? And who do you think should be held accountable for this? We've spoken, of course, about the scholar transport itself. We've spoken about the reckless and negligent driving. But as a family, where do you want to see accountability? Who do you think should take accountability?
Sure. Well, that is such a difficult question, Manqoba, because there's a lot of parties involved in what could have or what should have been done, or the preventative measures to this thing. There's a lot of parties or people that could have potentially prevented it. I'll first speak to the actual driver of the vehicle. I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know what he planned. I don't know what was his idea. I don't know. All those are questions that only he can answer at the right time, at the right platforms. Because that is utter gross negligence from his side. Like I said to you the other time, I struggle to look at the videos online. I refuse to consume that content because I know it'll only make me worse off than what I am now. But I think for whatever decisions that he made, because those were conscious decisions that he made a deliberate decision overtake those cars. So that is number one, where the accountability must be placed on him. That is no different to a mass shooting. That is no different to someone entering a place and just shooting people. And expectation is that the law should be able to deal with it as is. I think another aspect also is the owners of these transports or the associations that continue to neglect and prioritize the importance of scholar transport. I think over this year alone, this January alone, there's been multiple scholar transport accidents that happened. I can't recall all of them off by heart, but I know even before this one or even after this one, there's been a lot of scholar transport accidents happening, which means someone somewhere is not doing their job. It means someone somewhere is not either regulating, is not controlling, or is not making sure that the law is upheld in all aspects, because it's difficult, it's extremely difficult for parents to monitor, number one, the influx of children in the cars, the state of the car, whether it's roadworthy or not, whether the driver is roadworthy or not. It's difficult because when we go to the transport owner and we discuss business, and then they say they can service you and then you pay a fee. Then when the service comes, it's very difficult to regulate it or to monitor it. So I think the transport owners as well as the association have a huge role to play in that. In that, I don't think they're doing enough. I don't think they're doing enough to vet the drivers, to monitor the vehicle and all. I don't even think they have a standard as to what kind of vehicle must be used, if it's roadworthy or not, or after how long must they go back for checkings and all of those things. So I strongly believe there's still a lot of work, or there's a huge gap between the organizations, the owners, as well as the transport department themselves. I think we are doing relatively well monitoring motorists, normal motorists, from the roadblocks that we have to making sure that the vehicles are roadworthy and they are disc licensed. But I think we're neglecting a very important role in that aspect where we are speaking about scholar transport. Right now we are discussing an issue where apparently the car was not roadworthy. Apparently the driver, if he had a license or not, we don't know. And that is where I think the huge gap is. And this will continue to happen, unfortunately, Manqoba, God forbid. This will continue to happen. Lives will continue to be lost because we neglect the very fundamentals of child care.
Okay.
So I think it will continue to hurt us as a nation for as long as we don't stand up, for as long as we don't wake up and start finding solutions for this, and start finding ways to not only monitor but also regulate. Because if I can just give anyone a car and say go and drive innocent children, then there should be something wrong. If I can just wake up and say, my son, go and take XYZ and go pick up 25 kids and take them to a certain area without regular checks, without vetting, without nothing, I think that is irresponsible from us as a nation, or from the departments that are involved. I think it's very, very negligent. So I would love to see a change in that instance where the owners actually start taking accountability, because they are the ones that know the number of children that they service. They are the ones that understand that can they take 5 more children or not? Do they have the capacity to take those children? Do they have the trucks or the buses to take these kids safely home? They are the ones that know. But I don't think.
Do you think that is it enough for the driver to be taking accountability, to be facing these counts of murder, or do you think that the owner also should be charged for this?
I think the owner must be placed responsible one way or the other. Why am I saying that? I say that because the owner, first of all, is the one that knows the number of kids before even the driver comes. The owner knows exactly the number of people that they're servicing. And ultimately, these drivers are just workers and they work for these owners. These drivers just do what their owners tell them. I don't think that driver was acting out of his own will when he picked up those children. Yes, his own decisions was to create the accident by overtaking 5-6 cars, but the regulation of that car, if that car is roadworthy, if the driver is even fit enough to drive, that remains the responsibility of the owners. So I don't think the owners are placed responsible or accountable enough for this. So I honestly think the owners should also take some sort of accountability, because these cars are theirs. These cars are what runs their businesses, and I should think they are accountable for these cars and they are responsible for these cars. So when such mass killings happen, surely they have a role to play, and therefore, because they have a role to play, there's some sort of accountability that must be placed on them also.
Well, we've just heard from the father of one of the children that died in that accident. And joining me now is somebody from the Gauteng Education Transport Services, the spokesperson, Pilane Ramarotsi. Thank you very much, Pilane, for your time. Of course, you were there at the scene and you saw those tragic scenes that unfolded. But this is a year after another accident that happened around the same time, at the beginning of the school year. Where are we getting things wrong? What really is wrong here that we're seeing such young lives being lost on the roads? What is not being done correctly?
Thank you, Manqoba, for having me. Manqoba, to start with, let me send condolences to the families of the bereaved, and may the souls of our little angels rest in peace, and speedy recovery to those who are still fighting for their lives in hospital. Manqoba, the system itself is not a one-man space. It's an integrated space where all the stakeholders need to come together. Pointing fingers will never save children's lives. Our message for road safety is that, starting from our own members, who are the owners of the vehicles, because remember that Gauteng Education Transport Services is a structure which is existing at the provincial level. We have 5 regions, which is Tshwane, Ekurhuleni, Sidibe, Johannesburg, and West Rand. In those 5 regions, we have associations. And at the association level, it is where the members, the owners, and the operators are registering. And the primary responsibility of us is to transport learners from home to school and from school to home in a safe environment, in a very safe situation. Now, what went wrong is, if there's lack of communication between government and the stakeholders, that's where the problem starts. There's law enforcement that we see on the ground. We're talking about visibility of law enforcement. But the law enforcement, there's a stage where they don't even enforce the law, which becomes a problem that non-compliant people get a free will on the road. Firstly, the requirement for us as Gauteng Education Transport Services, for you to be able to join our associations, you must be having a vehicle which is roadworthy, which has been inspected, which have a double disc, a certificate of roadworthiness, and the operator card to show that you are an operator on the road.
In this instance, that was not the case. In fact, the car itself was not licensed. The driver did not have an operating license. So who takes accountability here? Surely you as GETS also needs to ensure that your members are properly documented, they're properly licensed. Where is the lapse? Would you take accountability, given that this was also your member of this particular transport, scholar transport vehicle?
Yes, Manqoba, accountability starts with the driver and the owner. Those are the first line of accountability that we must start with. Then you go to the associations, because owners are affiliating to the association at the ground level. At the provincial level, we're doing oversight over the regions. The regions are the ones who are responsible for the associations. But as SCADs, you cannot take away the responsibility, because the same associations that must take accountability for the drivers that they've accepted as members, they are our structures. We cannot shy away. That is the reason that currently we are awaiting a report that is with the authorities. And it will be premature of me to say the vehicle and the driver were at this state, because we have not got any final report which is based on the investigation that has been conducted. And the investigation has been conducted by law enforcement. But internally, we are doing inquiries with our region, which is Citibank, and the association where the member belong to.
Isn't it a bit too late though, Pilani? I'm asking this because this is something that should be done regularly. Perhaps somebody who's been affected by this would say, perhaps needs to get more involved in this. There should be weekly checks, there should be weekly operations, there should be, more intensified, checks and balances to ensure that these vehicles are roadworthy. And I'm saying this because there was a scathing report also by the Human Rights Commission from the Northwest on the day that this accident happened, that found that overloading, that found that most of the vehicles were unroadworthy. There were also law enforcement operations that took place where we found 27 children in one taxi. So surely you can do a lot as SCADs as well. Are you part of those operations? And where are the loopholes? How are you going to deal with the loopholes going forward?
Manqoba, as SCADs, we are doing, actually our membership, we renew it annually. So at the beginning of the year, all members should renew their membership so that you become a member in good standing.
Are you going to be checking that going forward?
We have checked that and we are still verifying it, because there are some of the members that have not renewed for this year. So even at this case, we are awaiting a report from the association itself to tell us if the member already affiliated for this year. Because if the member did not affiliate for this year, then he's not a member in good standing that we can speak on behalf of. Then he becomes a person that is a former member, because now he has not renewed his subscriptions. If it lapses, then you are no longer our member up until you come and renew. But in this case, as associations, we are requesting all our operators to show themselves to the office, because we must present a vehicle at the beginning of the year. Our stickers that we put on the vehicles are renewed annually. At the beginning of the year, it depends on the day that the associations are setting up. You have to come to the office, you bring your vehicle, you bring the details of your vehicle. Physically, the vehicle must be there, because the sticker is going to be put there. We have the safety officers that are making sure that they also do the inspection. But remember, we don't have that equipment that can go further to see whether the brakes are fine and all this thing. But the physical look at the vehicle, you are able to determine, and if it has a double disc which have not expired, then you are able to check if that car can be renewed to be on our road or on our network. Even the driver must have their PDP. If the owner is not the driver, because the owner is the one who employs the driver, the association does not get anywhere. But what we do, we have to come up with a code of conduct for drivers and operators, which are the owners. But remember, sometimes you can't regulate a behavior of a person. Somebody can just decide to become a member and fall on the other side, on the wrong side of the law. But that's when then, as an organization, we institute disciplinary proceedings internally to make sure that that member faces the consequences of what he has done.
Okay, I just got two more questions for you. The first one, can you confirm that this owner of this vehicle was a deputy president or deputy chairperson of the Gauteng Education Transport Services? And secondly, what are the consequences now? Parents want to know what is going to happen. Clearly, there was a lot of, law that was broken in terms of the vehicle, in terms of the driver himself. So can you confirm this? And what is going to happen now on your side to ensure that no more lives are lost in this manner?
The owner of the vehicle is the deputy chairperson of the Citibank region. He's not the deputy chair of the province. He's the deputy chairperson of the Citibank region. And he has been a member in good standing, according to my knowledge, for the previous year. But we are still awaiting all the final reports internally in terms of what is the status of his membership, because we wanted to get information in the previous week, but colleagues reported that they're still busy assisting the families to make sure that all this process of bearing the kids is finalized. Now we are awaiting a report from the association itself and the region that must submit it to the province. But moving forward, we are going to have a meeting this coming Saturday with all the regional structures that represent all the associations in Gauteng. And the message is one. From Monday after that meeting, we need to go on the ground as the Provincial Executive Committee members to be deployed in different regions to go and make sure that the inspection that we are speaking about, that must be done in vehicles, it is carried out. Because we trusted that there are people who are doing their work, but only to find that there are some loopholes where people are just sleeping on duty, or people will just neglect the safety standard that we have put as guests, and we are calling ourselves safety ambassadors for land transport. But if our structure does not comply to that, we will definitely be able to take action. But with regard to the owner, if the owner is found to be on the wrong side of the law, internally, like I've said, the case is still sub judice. We're not sure of the report, the legal report or the official report from the authorities. But the report that we're going to receive internally that shows that the owner did not comply, then we're going to charge the owner. Number one, there's going to be suspension of that owner as a member of the organization first, because being the deputy chair, you still have to be the member first. Now, we're going to suspend the deputy chair if there's a wrongdoing that is coming from his side. And as you suspend him as the deputy chair, it therefore means that his membership is going to be put on hold. His vehicle is not going to operate under our name. And we'll be reporting that also to the authorities. What steps have we taken, and that disciplinary processes that are going to unfold if a case of serious negligence is found to be on the side of the owner, then he can even face expulsion or suspended for a certain period, or a fine to be imposed internally on that owner. But we are having strict disciplinary measures, and the committees that are dealing with that is going to start at the regional level, because now it's the deputy chair of the region. Can't start from the association. Then it will be escalated to us as the province to take a final decision.
Okay, we've talked of consequences, but what can you promise parents now? Those parents who put their children in these vehicles every morning, what is your promise as kids?
We were discussing with the Gauteng Traffic Police, the Traffic Inspectorate, to bring up their trucks which they are doing testing on the road, because it will be difficult or for some time to drive to a certain testing station. But we are requesting them to come to a closer space where we are going to do voluntary testing of those vehicles, and we're going to do it in the period of 3 months. Every 3 months, then we'll be going around the regions to make sure that the Gauteng Traffic Inspectorate does our checkups, and it's on voluntary basis, not on the basis of arresting them, but voluntarily. Our guest members should bring their cars for an inspection so that they can be able to go and fix any minor issues that might be defects in those vehicles. So moving forward, it is going to create a safer environment and a safer space with that partnership from government of making sure that our vehicles are tested. And we're going to also improve on the vetting of drivers, because we have seen that owners cannot vet drivers enough. But as the province, we are going to be able to make a questionnaire and an assessment form for us to be able to see whether this person can be admitted as a driver, or we cannot admit that person as a driver. So those are some of the partnerships that are coming on board.
Okay, now thank you very much. There is Pilani Ramorotsi, who speaks on behalf of the Gauteng Education Transport Services. Of course, talking about accountability and where to from now, because clearly we cannot afford to lose more lives on the road. But joining me now is Lesiba Mpia, who is from the Roads and Transport Department. He's the spokesperson of the department. Thank you very much. We're back again this year. Another fatal crash, 14 pupils dead. How many more children must die before we see any sustained, visible change on our roads?
Thank you very much, Manqoba. Good morning to your team and yourself, and good morning to viewers out there. Look, one life is too many, Manqoba, and that is why we have taken a stance throughout the year, in the previous year, that we're going to increase boots on the ground in terms of law enforcement. But Manqoba, I must say that we can impound the vehicles. We can remove them from the roads. We can discontinue them. We can arrest people. But one thing that has got to be an onus, an obligation on a person, is personal responsibility, taking responsibility for one's actions. A motorist has got to understand that once you get into or behind that wheel, you definitely have responsibility of many other people except yourself. So we can do all we can as government, but one thing that we need to personally account for is everyone who are on the roads is personal responsibility, is our own responsibility and our own actions.
But what accountability are you taking as a Department of Roads and Transport, given that you are the ones that come up with the law, the regulations? And clearly in this case, from last year, nothing much has changed.
Look, Manqoba, I disagree with that. From last year, there has been, I can give you, we can give you a status analysis in terms of the pounds in before 2024 and as well as post 2025. And you can see that indeed we have been, rolling up our sleeves. We had work cut out for us. Law enforcement officers have been, impounding the vehicles, removing them from the roads, vehicles that are unroadworthy, vehicles that do not meet the prerequisites in terms of the National Road Traffic Act, vehicles that are found with very smooth tires, with beyond 1 millimeter of tire thread, and vehicles that are just not in a state of being on Gauteng's roads. So the comparison is there, and the evidence is there. We've got evidential evidence to show that we have been arresting people who have been trying to, avoid accountability by trying to, bribe their way outside of the required punishment. So yes, we do take culpability and accountability in terms of the laws that are made and the laws that we have got to implement. However, beyond that, we can't be able to demonstrate that we have been doing so much.
In the Vanderbijlpark incident, the driver that was driving this car was found not to have proper documentation. In fact, his PDP had expired. The vehicle itself was found not to be licensed properly. How does a vehicle that is not licensed take children to school? Where did it all fail in the system? Where is the issue here?
The issue, like I said, we had a campaign termed Itomagawena. It starts with you as a person who, gets behind that wheel, as a person who's going to be transporting those passengers. It starts with you, and that is why we say, as government, we've been removing these vehicles off the roads. But ultimately, each and every one of us, even the National Road Traffic Act, Section 49, puts an obligation on each and everyone to make sure that you are properly licensed, to make sure that you've got a professional driver's permits, that your children that you are transporting are offloaded and loaded in a manner that is safe, that they are transported in a manner that is safe, that your vehicles at all material times, ticks the boxes in terms of compliance. So it definitely boils down, one, to a personal responsibility in line with Section 49 of the RTA, but also with intensified law enforcement. And that is why we say we can't necessarily absolve ourselves from the challenges of society. And that is why we can demonstrate that we have increased our presence on the road, and we definitely have made far more arrests than we have made in previous years.
Parents will say that's a little bit too late for them, given that they've lost their children. But in terms of now going forward, of course, we know that you've been having these law enforcement official operations that have been taking place, but the numbers are shocking, Lesiba, to say the least. We had 69 vehicles impounded last week. We're talking about 94%, according to you as the Department, of scholar transport vehicles that are not roadworthy, that are not meant to be on the roads. How is it possible that they're still on the roads up until now, after these crashes, these two major crashes that happened?
Look, we can emphasize it far more, far too many times, that we have an obligation as society, as a person who's going to drive that vehicle, that you do not drive a vehicle that is going to be weaponized, that is going to be a danger in other people's lives. So you have got a responsibility to make sure that your vehicle is in good standards. Failure to that, you will face the full might of the law. And we must also say that law enforcement might not be everywhere. Of the province is concerned, you would know that we have a population of about 4 million just in in Ekurhuleni alone. We have a 4 million population of the vehicles across the province. But we definitely cannot match that population in terms of the law enforcement agencies or the law enforcement personnel that are on the road. And that is why the Premier would have said, like, let's integrate resources and ensure that we are able to share these particular resources so that society gets to benefit from the resource multiplication. We want firstly we will take the criticism, but we'll also say that beyond all that, government has been steadfast in ensuring that all those that are transgressors are taken to book. There's impunity of the law. There are those that are impugning on the law, those that are driving on yellow lines, those that are overtaking on barrier lines, those that choose to actually overload vehicles. It's a choice that people make, and it's a choice that we will no longer take lightly as government. And that is why we can account for all those transgressors that many of them today have been arrested.
And just for me, Lesiba, in terms of what happens now, of course, the big question is what happens now? We've seen these law enforcement operations taking place, but how long will these last? And what assurance can you give to parents that take their children to school as a Department of Transport? What would you say to those parents?
Look, Manqoba, moving forward, this has got to be a shared responsibility. Parents has got to assist us. No parents must not take the value of their money lightly. You've got to realize the value of your money. Assist us to actually inspect the vehicle. And we know that parents can't be everywhere. We know that there's a parent who lives at work at 5 o'clock and their kid gets picked up at 7 o'clock. But this is it's a community issue. It takes a village to raise these children. And we are calling for the community to join hands with the public or with the department. We have a hotline which is 0861 400 800, 0861 400 800, where we are appealing to members of the public to make a call once they pick up that there's a vehicle that should not be on the road. Once they pick up that there is a driver who has a specific driver problem, we have got to be made alert as the government so that we can be able to dispatch resources and the law must be able to take its course. We're saying to parents that we must be able to join hands moving forward. We are in mourning as a province together with the community and in memory of the kids that we have, laid to rest. We must be able to approach road safety in a different way this time around.
There are many of those that say that the department itself is problematic. When you speak to the scholar transport drivers, they're saying that it's not by choice that they don't have the permits, but it's the department that has a backlog in terms of issuing these permits. So they're saying that they're being forced to operate illegally because of the backlogs from the Department of Transport. So aren't you contributing to the illegality that is taking place on the roads?
No, not at all, Manqoba. There's a legal obligation on anyone who's going to enter the market to transport passengers. There's a legal obligation on them to make sure that their documentation are in a state that is compliant. Law enforcement is a secondary matter. Primary is to make sure that yourself as a person who chooses to participate in passenger transportation, you have got to align yourself with the National Road Traffic Act, read it and understand it. You have got to align yourself with the National Land Transport Act because that piece of legislation regulates how you must conduct yourself in a manner that is compliant, as much as you are earning a fee or exchanging your operation for a fee.
But
so
you agree that
there
there are
no
backlogs?
Actual backlog. No, there's no actual backlog in terms of scholar transport. We would have acceded to the fact that there was a backlog in terms of taxi operations. However, in terms of scholar transport, we have picked up that there was also a misinformation on the part of operators because they were applying at association level, thinking that associations are making applications on their behalf, only to find that that should not be the case. The department wants to see the applicant. That is why we say when you are going to enter into such a business, you've got to understand the legal framework that governs it so that yourself as a person who is an applicant, who is an operator, must take personal responsibility on the legalities that govern that particular business.
Okay.
So no, as I can give you the figures, we have 1,536 of applications in the system. We have issued 516. We have 1,099 that are yet to be approved. They are at different stage gates.
Well, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much. That was Lesiba Mpia from the Roads and Transport Department here in Gauteng speaking to us. Of course, we want to thank all of our guests. That was Pilani Ramaratsi from the Gauteng Education Transport Services, as well as Chris Masinya, who is the parent of one of the children that lost their lives last week. Of course, our pain, is still with the families as they still continue to mourn their young ones. Of course, it has affected a nation. The whole nation is in mourning, and of course, it calls for a reflection on scholar transport. But in terms of the case itself, the driver is expected to appear in court on the 5th of March. He has since abandoned his bail, and the state saying that they believe they have a prima facie case against him. He has been charged with 14 counts of murder. And of course, this as their calls for the owner of the vehicle to also be held accountable. Well, one thing is quite clear. A safe trip to school should not be a privilege. It should be the minimum. We'll keep you up to date with the developments in this case as, of course, it continues to unravel. For as explained, I'm Manqoba Mchunu.